What's up, everybody? Today we are test driving a 2022 Subaru Forester Premium. And for the most part, we could be test driving just about any new Forester, except for the Wilderness. The Wilderness has a slightly different ride height, a little bit different style of tire, and the gearing is a little bit different. But other than those changes on that one model, all of the new Foresters have the same engine, same transmission. Very smooth ride on the highway. I'm currently doing about 75 miles an hour. So that'll give you an idea of the noise on the vehicle. There is some wind noise. It is a sport utility vehicle, so you have a little bit higher roof line, so you do get a little bit of wind noise. I'm not really getting any tire or engine noise that's noticeable right now. One thing people do really like about the Forester is the outward visibility. And there is a notable lack of blind spots in these cars. There kind of always has been. And there's no real secret behind it. If you look at the car from the side, it's pretty much all glass. So it just makes it easy to see out of because there isn't a whole lot to be in the way of seeing out of the car. And the Forester is a car near and dear to my heart. I do really like these vehicles. I'll be upfront about that. I had one back in the day. My mom has had two of them. And it's a car that just does well in just about any situation. I mean, I'm out on the highway and very comfortable, smooth ride, comfortable seats. If you get it in town, it's got a good turning radius. It's easy to see out of, so it's easy to park. Obviously, the all-wheel drive system in any sort of bad weather conditions, you know, and the 8.7 inches of standard ground clearance, so it's good in those kind of conditions. So it's just overall a very practical car. I just am out on a highway drive right now, so I figured I'd film this here. The handling is, as far as SUVs go, very good on these as well. One little trick, if you have one of these, or if you're thinking to test drive one or something like that, if you're going through a curve, leave your foot on the gas a little bit, give it a little bit of throttle. Now obviously at a reasonable speed, right? But because Subaru's all-wheel drive system works in any condition, whether it's a wet road, a dry road, you know, gravel, off-road, whatever, if the engine is giving some power to the all-wheel drive system, it will actually keep the car cornering a little bit flatter in a curve, again, at a reasonable speed. You know, if you enter a curve at 100 miles an hour with your foot welded to the floor, that might not work out very well. But if you, again, are going at a reasonable and normal speed and you leave a light throttle application, it will give you a little bit better grip through the corner, even on a dry road. It's a lot of fun on an open freeway interchange. I spent many years of my life in a previous life as a Subaru salesperson, and who knows, I may again at some point in the future. But one thing I always noticed when people were test driving, not just a Forester, but really any Subaru model, is I could always tell if they had had a Subaru before based on, for lack of a better term, how aggressively they drove the car during the test drive. If somebody was used to driving Toyotas, Hondas, that sort of thing, they would be more cautious on a test drive. But if they'd already had a Subaru and they were getting into another one, they'd maintain higher speed through the curves, they'd accelerate a little bit harder because they already had confidence in what the capabilities of the car were going to be. And, you know, they were probably testing it out to make sure that it would perform the same as the Subaru they were thinking about replacing. And I have had 6 of these cars myself. I lease them, that's why. So I'm currently on my 6th Subaru lease in a row. So I am a big fan. I should point that out. There is some bias on my part, but you know, they're just great cars. The Forester in particular, when I was selling them, it was interesting the cross sections of people that you would get that would buy these cars. Young people who were just having their first kids, starting a family, would buy them. Older people who were retired and the kids moved out of the house would buy them. Young dudes that didn't have kids or anything would buy it because they wanted to go skiing. And, you know, old ladies would buy it because they could take it to the gardening center and put plants in it, and it was easy to get in and out of. And, you know, just across all age ranges and genders and many different reasons, people would buy these cars. And that's somewhat unique. The Subaru Outback was similar market space, obviously. But Subaru wasn't the only brand of cars they ever sold, and there were certain cars where, you know, like I sold Volkswagens for a while. If you were selling a Beetle, 95% chance you were selling it to a female, and if it was being sold to a male, he was going to certainly be 65 years old or older. You know, and there's just certain cars that have their demographics, and this is one that really doesn't. It really is kind of all things to all people, because there's so much that it's capable of, whether you have an active lifestyle or you just need to get to the grocery store and church and a doctor's appointment and you want to be comfortable doing it. It'll do any of those things. The adaptive cruise control is just locked onto the vehicle in front of me. That's another thing that I do love, and it's a standard feature, I think now on any Subaru with an automatic transmission, even the new BRZ, you get the Isight system, which includes the adaptive cruise control, which is a very handy system whether you're driving in stop-and-go traffic or a long freeway drive. These new Foresters also have the lane centering, so if you have that engaged, it can read the lane lines, and if it reads those lane lines, then it tries to keep the steering centered in the middle of the lane. It still wants you to steer, or at least have your hands on the wheel. If you take your hands off of the wheel, it's not mad at me yet. At some point, it's going to beep at me and tell me to put my hands back on the wheel. There it is. Keep hands on steering wheel. Okay, so it does want you to keep your hands on the steering wheel, and you should. It's not a self-driving system, and you should. I just took my hands off the wheel for 25 seconds, but I'm a professional. This is not a self-driving system. It's meant to be more of a driver aid, but it is a cool system nonetheless. And now we're down to about 65 miles an hour if you want to get an idea for the road noise at this speed. We are killing bugs on the windshield. It's involuntary on my part. I don't wish harm on any of God's creatures. So anyway, that is my test drive video of a new 2022 Subaru Forester. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like the video, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment if you feel so inclined. I appreciate it. And you have yourself a wonderful day and drive safely. Bye-bye. We're gonna have a little fun. Now, if you're ever in a Subaru in an empty parking lot and you wanna feel the effect of the all-wheel drive system, just do this. Crank the wheel like so, give it a little bit of throttle, give it a little bit more throttle, and spin it around at 15 miles an hour in a tight circle. You can go faster if you want, but I'm a reasonable man, so I'm not going to.